Okay, so we're now going to make a dovetail joint. We're going to use a piece of wood that's 3 inches by 1 inch planed all around, so it's a bit smaller than an inch because it's been planed all around the whole piece of wood to make it smoother and flatter. So what you're going to do first is the same as what you've done previously, which is just to cut the piece of wood in half. So if you measure the total distance, it should be 150 millimeters. If you just half that distance, and then obviously put a dot, and then you use the tri-square just to square it off, so you get the 90 degrees, and make sure you loop it down the sides as well. You've done this many times before. So down the side and then down the other side. And you put a dot first just so you can see where the line is. Okay. Now, Ben chucks that up in the vise, and then you're then going to position it just off to the side, and you're going to pull back 3 times, and then you cut through the piece of wood. Push down firmly. Don't forget to keep checking that you saw on straight. Okay. And then when you're done with that, you can just give it a light sand down just to make sure it's not going to give you a splinter. Okay, so just lightly sand it down on the edges. Now, let's rewind it a little bit. So at this stage, you need to know the thickness of this piece of wood, and you're doing it on the end of the other piece of wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm positioning this piece of wood directly on top, make sure it's level with the side by just using your fingers. And then I'm just going to put a dot with a sharp pencil right in just at that point, so you know the thickness. Now, using the tri-square, just square that off, and again, just make sure that you do it all the way around. So you'll see I'm doing down the sides, and I'm also doing the back. So you can see that it's been looped all the way around the whole piece of wood, so I can see both sides and make sure it's level all the way around. Okay. And then we'll then do exactly the same thing with the other piece of wood. So I'm going to loop around that as well. So both pieces should have a complete loop around, which will be the thickness of the piece of wood. Okay, now at this stage, I'm setting up my my marking gauge. So the distance is, I think it was around 2 centimeters for this. So 20 millimeters from the stock to the tip of the pin. Okay, and then you just then draw it all the way around particularly the end, the end that you just marked around. Flip it around, do the same thing on the other side. So you should have then a line running 20 centimeters all the way around there and 20 centimeters all the way around there, and repeat exactly the same on the other piece. Okay, so I'm going to then run my pencil line in the groove so that I can clearly see where I've marked out. Okay, now I'm going to reset my marking gauge up. So instead of it being 2 centimeters, I'm going to bring it in a little bit, just 1.5 centimeters. Okay, so you make sure the distance from the stock to the center to the pin is exactly 1.5 centimeters, and then loop it around again. So it should just be 0.5 centimeter in from the other lines that you drew. Okay, and then you do the same thing with a pencil, just mark it so you can see it a bit clearer. And do the same thing on the other one. So you can see it's 4 lines that have been drawn around. Now I'm going to draw a diagonal from one of them to the other one on the front face. And place the ruler from this corner to that corner and just draw a nice straight line. Make sure your pencil is sharp at this point. And then repeat on the other side. So it needs to be fanning outwards. Okay, so as the tail is going out to the dovetail joint. I'm going to mark it on the other side, so it's basically from in to out. Same again. So the dovetail is drawn using those two lines as a guide. Now the sections I need to remove are that section, all of that, so I'm just going to shade it in just so it's clear. Okay, I'm going to be keeping all of that there, so that's going to be the dovetail on that section. Now I repeat the same process, but instead of doing it on the front face of the piece of wood, I then do it on the top face here. So again, it's going to be going from diagonally from the inside to the outside. Okay, so we have a look at this. Okay, so it's on that top face there that you mark out. Okay, and then I've got to figure out then which section needs to be removed, and in this case it's the middle bit that needs to be removed of the dovetail so that this bit slots into that section eventually. So again, you scribble on the waist so that you know which side of the line to saw on, and just so you know which section's being removed. Okay, so you can clearly see that bit's going to be kept and this bit's going to be removed. Okay. Okay, so at this stage, I'm going to set up the engineer's vise to help me hold it in place firmly so it doesn't move around. And I've got it so that I can see which sections need to be removed. So where I'm stood, I can see that the scribbled lines are. I'm going to clamp that down with a G clamp so it doesn't move around. And then I'm going to carefully just do it so position the piece of wood at an angle, just so that when I'm sawing straight down. So I'm looking at this straight line here, so that I'm going to be sawing straight down rather than an angle. It just makes life a bit easier. So at this point, position on the waist side of the line and pull back 3 times. Very carefully, making sure you're sawing straight, your head's over it, so you can see you're sawing straight. You're going to saw down to this point here and stop when you get to the line. Okay, then repeat on the other side. All right, so now I'm going to position it this side on now and just saw straight down to remove this section here. So again, pull back 3 times and then just carefully saw down to that point. And repeat on the other side. Okay, leaving you with the dovetail section. So you can see it should look like a kind of the tail of a dove design. Okay, so at this stage, we need to set up the other section for the dovetail to go into. So if you position your piece of wood vertically, and then again on the waist side of the line, you're cutting at an angle now across. So don't forget, and just then obviously a cut right down to the line. Okay, just take your time and make sure you keep it nice and straight. And then you repeat on the other side. Okay, now we need to then chisel this section away. So I'm going to position it in the bent chuck, or you could clamp it down with a scrap piece of wood underneath. And then I'm going to position the chisel so it's vertical with the flat edge to the section I want to keep and the bevel on the waist side. Hit down about 3 firm hits, 3 or 4 millimeters down, go across the line all the way. Obviously within the bit you're getting rid of, don't go all the way across. And then come at it from the side. So bevel side down, it'll just then remove that section and lever it out. Okay, and then just repeat. So just go down to halfway, and then we're going to turn it over so that the chisel doesn't get damaged by the metal engineer's vise. So again, just lever that section out. Just fast forward this. And just remember to turn over the piece of wood when you get halfway through. Okay, and repeat the same process on the other side. Just be very careful, you don't want to blunt the chisel, so don't be hitting the chisel against the metal. So just remember to stop when you get towards that point. Okay, and if you need to remove any sections or remove any bits a bit more, then you can file it down. And just make sure that it's nice and level and flat. Okay, now what you need to do is you then position it. So hopefully it fits. If it doesn't, you just might need to file a bit more off. Or you can slice off very thin slithers with the chisel. So you can see that fits quite nicely there. And that's a nice, simple dovetail joint. Okay, thank you for watching.